Hey, what's up? It's Sawyer. It's no secret that CLI coding agents are the hottest new thing of 2025, and I thought with GPT-5 coming out last week, now is a better time than ever to sort of put these things head to head and try to figure out what's the best one to work in production code bases. I've seen a few of these sort of comparisons on coding agents and different models doing coding before, but they're always with like super contrived examples, like one-off apps. So today I'm actually going to try to put all of these four agents head to head on a task in my actual production code base and see how they perform. So the contenders for today are Claude Code, Codex, the brand new Cursor CLI, which dropped last week, and also Amp Code. I picked these four in particular because I think they kind of give you a good segment of the market. You have basically the ones made by model providers. You have Claude Code, which in this case I'm going to be using Opus. You have Codex by OpenAI. I'm going to be using GPT-5 for that. These ones done by third parties. And they sort of let you, they have different philosophies. Cursor, for example, lets you choose between a lot of different model providers, and then you have something like Amp by Sourcegraph, which is really tuned for a specific set of models. And so I think this will give you like a good, sort of landscape of how these different CLIs behave in different combinations on who they're by, what model they're using. With all this said, I kind of wanted to set up a set of testing criteria on how to pick a task to give these agents to sort of pit them against each other. And I basically kind of went down, these are the criteria that are important to me. I want the task to be on a production application. I want the task to be a full stack change. So it's not just a single, like one line change in a file, like a single file. I kind of want it to, exercise a change across a few different parts of the system. I want it to be on like a medium-ish size code base where, it's at least 100,000 lines of code. It's not the biggest thing in the world, but not a trivial toy either. I kind of want it to be in that realm of like maybe it would take a new hire, brand new to a code base, maybe half a day to complete. And I also want to test if an agent can one-shot this task. This just makes it easier to test, so I don't have to, there's a lot of entropy introduced if I have to go back and forth. The test isn't exactly fair if I do that with all these different agents. And then finally, there's just a basic overview of the code base in a Claude MD, Agent MD, and Agents MD file, whichever the agent needs to succeed. With this said, I decided to make a change to my application Tarragon, which is sort of a cloud-based background running system, or agent orchestrator, if you will, for different coding agents. And the change I want to make is basically in settings, you go here, and there is a button to opt in users into preview features. So, there's a feature flag system in this app. I want a way to mark a feature flag as being a preview feature. And then there's basically a way for a user to click on opt into it in settings, and then this feature flag is enabled for them. And I want to test this out with a new UI overhaul that we're doing, which the code is already written for, but I want it to sort of exercise creating this preview opt-in system so we can get users to test it. So this is the version that I coded up myself. So you go to settings, you opt into preview features, you go home, and you now have this new UI here where there's tasks on the side, where with it off, the tasks are under here. So yeah, that's essentially the task I want to make them try out. So let's go back and kind of look at the prompt that I'm giving them. Add a new setting to the user settings page that lets the users opt into preview features. Add a way to configure the feature flags to be marked as preview features. When a user opts into preview features, the feature flag should be automatically enabled for the user regardless of the flag's global setting. Mark the feature flag for Sawyer UI, that's the name of the feature flag with the sidebar on it, to be marked as a preview feature. Organize the user settings into categorical sections so it's easier to parse. Add test coverage for how you change checking what flag is enabled for the user, and make sure that TypeScript passes. You can see that there's actually a few different layers to this. The agent has to make a change to the front end so that we can display the user's preference. There's a shared logic package where they have to change how the feature flags are defined and also determine if the flag is enabled or not. Like that logic has to change a bit. They're going to have to make a change to the database on storing the actual user's preference. And then finally, they have to set the user's preference in the database via have an API boundary for that. So even though it's kind of simple, it does sort of test the agent's ability to sort of, generically crawl the code base, find out where these places are, and actually make the change themselves. Yeah. So without further ado, let's dive into the agents. All right, so I'm going to start off using my personal daily driver, Claude Code. This is what I default to normally. I would say it's the incumbent here. For all these tests, I'm going to use it with the best model that they have available. So in this case, I'm going to be using Opus 4.1. And so let's just hop in with our prompt, which I'll go ahead, copy in. Let's open up my terminal. And we'll just hop in and run. Let's see what it does. Okay, and it looks like we're done. Let's maybe give it a little overview here to see what we got from Claude Code here. It had an optional is preview property to the feature flag definitions. It marked the feature flag we wanted as being in the preview. It added a enable preview features boolean to user settings. It changed how we detect if the user is in a flag by checking if they're opted into previews. Looks like it added test coverage, and it fixed up TypeScript. So let's give this a whirl, shall we, and see what it looks like. And so this the sidebar is not here, so that means I'm not in the feature flag yet. So if I go to settings, we should have an option to enable feature previews. If I refresh the page, go home, we'll see that we are here. So it looks like it implemented it one shot, which I'm pretty impressed by. Looking at cursor, we can see that it mainly just grouped these things together. It looks like it didn't do a lot for the settings row. It just had to make this change to set user settings. Add our one database schema location. And it looks like when we're looking at if a user's in a feature flag, we check this, see if they have previous features enabled. We check if it's a preview flag. It's a little interesting how it did this really guarded check to fix this TypeScript error. It probably should have just changed the typing of the feature flags a bit more so it satisfies the constraint that is previews optional. Right, so if they've manually overridden it, that's it. Otherwise, if they're in a preview, it's true. And then otherwise, the global value takes precedence. This actually looks great to me. This makes 100% sense. This is actually, or it makes perfect sense and is like really easy to parse. So I think that's quite nice. Yeah, this looks pretty good. I'm overall incredibly happy with how Claude did this. Back at it again, this time with Codex, now newly with GPT-5 support as of the past few days. And same prompt as that we sent Claude Code. Let's see how it performs. Okay, and it looks like Codex is finally done. I will say it feels like it took a lot longer than Claude Code. I pop in cursor. It looks like it updated our feature flag tests again. It added the definition so that story UI enabled is true. Schema added a new flag for this. So we have a new column so that users can opt in to preview features. Looks good. Looks like it just grouped up the UI. It looks great. And finally, let's look at this change to the feature flags logic. Okay, so if it's preview and the person's there, base there, otherwise it goes to the default value. This actually looks great. Surprisingly, I actually think the code here is a little bit more readable. It's much more clear to me what is happening in this case. It's maybe just a little tighter to read. Just the same thing. It's off. We go in, let's check preview features. We go home. I think we need to refresh. And we can see that this pops up, which is great. That's exactly what I wanted. So honestly, at this point, Claude Code and Codex are tied. They both got really good, essentially very similar implementations for this. I actually preferred the Codex GPT-5 code output a little bit more. I thought it was a little bit more minimal, easier to understand. I will say it took it a little bit longer, so I don't know how I feel about that. But yeah, let's go on to the next one. I'm back at it again, now trying the brand new Cursor agent that dropped alongside GPT-5. Same rules as the other one, same prompt, also using GPT-5 in this case. So let's let it rip and see what it comes up with. It looks like Cursor is finally done. It looks like it actually took a little bit different approach than the other one, so I'm kind of excited. It looked like it took a little bit different approach, so I'm excited to see how it works. So this looks the same. Added its preview to feature flags. Okay, it enabled preview feature, that looks right. I improved concurrency when creating user settings. This now insert on conflict do nothing plus select to avoid duplicate user setting rows and concurrent code paths. That is interesting. So it kind of went above and beyond and tried to fix something else. Reorganize the setting UI, and it adds some tests to make sure they all passed. So it actually just looks like the only thing it did is it changed how user flag insertion looked a little bit. Let's go inside, and actually committed a change for us. But let's see. Looks like it grouped these together. The UI. Add this enable preview features to what I'm guessing is user settings, which it did. Is preview. Sawyer UI is now a preview feature. Okay, so it's actually being pretty exhaustive and it's checking it's checking all the flags to make sure, which is kind of interesting. Oh, okay, whoa. If user settings.enable feature previews, it is retyping this as an array from feature flag name, and then it's doing a dynamic import here to get the feature flag definition, which is kind of nasty. Oh god, true as any. Ugh, this is horrible. What? This is the worst code. My god. Okay, yeah. So this, I think it's gonna work, but man, it looks nasty. I don't understand why it changed this on conflict rather than it throwing before. Maybe it ran into a race condition when actually running tests, which I guess in this case this is probably good. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and test it. We'll go here. Let's opt into preview features. Give it a good old refresh. And it looks like it works. So it does work. This is the worst code I've seen so far. Honestly, out of all the options. So I was not particularly happy with the output of Cursor and GPT-5 in this case. Yeah, it did do the job. So just the code was probably the nastiest. That's the one where I'd definitely go in, make manual changes, or reprompt it to clean that up. Code, not the best. Kind of got sidetracked and fixed other things at the same time, which I generally don't like. I like it when my agent is really scoped to what it should be doing. What I asked it to do rather than going off on a side quest. But yeah, overall it did look like it worked. Here we are with what I would say is the dark horse of the CLI agents AMP. This is the one that I've used the least, but I've heard people say great things about, so I'm excited to give it a whirl. Yeah, I think different than the other ones. So we use GPT-5 for Codex and Cursor, and then Opus for Claude Code. You don't really get to choose the model in this case. I think it defaults to Sonnet, and then maybe chooses between a few other models for other operations. So you know the drill now. Same prompt. Let's let it rip, and I'll be back in a few. Let's see what it says it did. Did the as any here to elude. AMP made the worst code here for sure. Doing an any check here to really make it, not type safe for the preview feature. Otherwise, this looks a lot like the Claude Code one. Looks like I added more tests than other ones. It did try the not preview feature case to make sure that that doesn't break, which is quite good. I actually think GPT-5 ended up doing that in either Cursor or Codex. Yeah, okay. Let's see how it actually behaves. Enable preview features. We go home, refresh, and it's there. So it looks like it did it as well. Yeah, so any of them were able to complete this task successfully, which is probably a good thing. Without further ado, let's go over the results of my little agent competition I have. We're going to break down the results that they produced in terms of 4 categories. First is the functionality, did it work or not? Next is the quality of the code. Would I actually just commit this to my code base, or would I have to do some significant cleanup first? Finally is the speed, how quickly did the agent get it done? And then finally, what's the actual quality of the terminal UI application you're interacting with yourself? First, with functionality, it's a tie for first place. I was actually kind of surprised. Maybe the task I picked was a little bit too easy, but every single agent was able to complete the task successfully, and it ended up working exactly how I expected it to. So first place all across the board there. You really can't go wrong. Each of these agents were able to complete the task. Next, the actual quality of the code. In this case, I would say Codex clearly, or maybe not clearly, got, in my opinion, a pretty solid first place. I think I would take that diff that it submitted exactly as is and just commit to the code base. No cleanup needed. Close second, though, by Claude Code. I thought Claude Code's answer was very acceptable too, and the quality of the code was fine, and also would have probably merged into my code base. Third place is Amp. This is maybe the first line where I would probably just not commit it as is to the code base for this task. I would significantly want to clean it up and make it more type safe. It was doing a lot of like as any casts at a few places, which just, especially when you don't need to, it doesn't really fly here. And finally, there was Cursor CLI, which just did disgusting code. Truly, I was not very happy with its answer. It made erroneous changes. It also did a lot of unsafe typecasting when it really didn't need to. So yeah, overall was not happy with the output of Cursor, but honestly, for the other ones, they all performed pretty similarly. Next, we have the speed. In this case, the first place was Amp. It actually only took 6 minutes 33 seconds to complete, followed by Claude Code, which took 7 minutes. Next, Codex took 7 minutes 44 seconds, and finally Cursor CLI took 8 minutes 9 seconds. So honestly, they're all kind of in the similar-ish ballpark, within like a minute and a half of each other. So I actually don't think for like this side's task, that's not like a huge deal breaker. I don't know if I would necessarily pick one or the other over speed. But yeah, it looks like Amp really edges out here, most likely because it uses Sonnet. Claude Code comes in second because it's using Opus, and GPT-5 is pretty slow, as we can see, and we can see those results in both Codex and Cursor. And then finally, the actual quality of the terminal application itself, the TUI. First place goes to Claude Code. It is the one who's like refined this the most. It has just enough custom features built in. You can do custom slash commands. You can do, custom status bars. You can background tasks. Just as an application, it's thought out the most. It's the oldest. It's the one that's been out the longest. So it makes sense that it's the most well thought out. Number 2 is the Cursor CLI, surprisingly, for being pretty hot off the press. I feel like it has a pretty good overview of actually, features that you would actually want to use, and the usability is quite high. I would say there's not a big gap between Cursor and Amp. Amp is also fairly well thought out and usable. It's just a little bit more Spartan. I think finally Codex probably is the worst interface of all of them. It's just kind of not well thought out. There's like little things that you would expect it to have, like resumable chat sessions and things like that it just doesn't have at the moment. It's definitely sort of bare bones, but they all sort of get the job done if that's where you want to go. So I think my overall conclusions from this is actually there isn't a single best coding agent, at least given this task. Maybe I should have picked something maybe a little bit more challenging. But they all sort of compete in a very similar level to each other, and they all have different pros and cons. I think a lot of it comes down to personal preference. I think my big learning from this is someone's like, no, you're like so far behind, you're still using Claude Code, you need to be using GPT-5. Or if someone says, like, don't use GPT-5, Claude is better, I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. I think there's, a lot of reason to switch between these tools and really pick the one that best suits your style. I don't think there's a one clear winner in this case at all. Maybe one thing to think about is pricing. Claude Code's pretty expensive, but you can opt for a $200 a month plan and get close to unlimited usage or really high rate limits. Codex has basically, you can get some usage in your $20 a month ChatGPT plan, or if you have the Pro plan for $200 a month. Cursor is usage-based or also a $200 a month plan, and Amp is purely pay-as-you-go. So, they all have different payment options too, but I would assume that, that was it. I hope this was helpful. I definitely learned a lot, and I think what I learned is maybe I need to continuously reevaluate and try out these different tools and figure out which one's best for me. Peace.